What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for tuning in. Today's video should be a fun one, addressing probably one of the most controversial subjects around the 7.3 liter Power Stroke engine. As I'm sure you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about the CCV mod. Of my years dealing with the 7.3 liter Power Stroke, this is probably the most or the second most controversial topic I have ever heard about these engines, right alongside whether or not you should change the oil in your high pressure oil reservoir. We're not getting into that one today. This one is something that you will find countless people on both sides of it, and hopefully I can give you my input on it and maybe sway your guys' opinion one way or the other. It is what it is. It's my opinion, but I'm going to be listing off, going through some things that I think some of you guys should think about when it comes to this topic. So for any of you guys that may be new to the 7.3 liter Power Stroke, and you don't know what the CCV is, it is the Crankcase Ventilation, or the Crankcase Ventilation System. So very dumbed down explanation for you guys is inside almost every single engine, especially diesels, a little bit of the combustion gases blow past the cylinders down into the crankcase where your crankshaft is. This causes pressure inside your engine, and if there's no way to get rid of that pressure inside your engine, you'll start blowing out oil seals and whatnot. It's just not good to have it inside your engine. So just about every engine out there has a crankcase ventilation system. Even gas engines do. On our trucks, our crankcase ventilation system vents up into the intake of the turbo. Let me jump up under the hood and show you guys what I'm talking about. So here under the hood of the truck, ignore how dirty everything is, but we have our intake going into the turbo right here. This is an S&B intake, but it is very similar to your factory intake on the trucks. Down below the intake, you will see this housing right here. When people refer to the CCV, this is what they're talking about. Now, for any of you guys that know what you're looking at, you will notice that I already have my CCV mod done. Normally, you can see in that corner, there's a little 90-degree elbow. That is on the left side of the doghouse, and it goes up into the intake and gets sucked into the turbo. As you can see with mine, I have my doghouse turned around and another tube attached to my crankcase vent that goes up over the top of the master cylinder and down underneath the truck to where it vents. So why does anybody do the CCV mod? What is the point of the CCV mod? Essentially, you're venting your crankcase one way or the other. Why would you vent your crankcase out underneath the truck to the atmosphere? So with these crankcase gases on a diesel, especially these engines, there is a bit of oil vapor that is inside those gases as they're venting out. Those gases, when they're venting into the intake, go into the intake, into the turbo, and then down through your intercooler pipings, down there, into your intercooler, back up to the other side, and into your intake. Now, like I said, those gases actually have some oil vapors in them, and if you look at any old 7.3 engine that hasn't really been cleaned much, you'll notice that all of these boots here, down there, over on that side, and the one down below on the other side, they're all going to be saturated with oil residue, and the engines look totally filthy. If you just bought a new 7.3 engine, chances are your engine looks like that. Although it's not the end of the world to have these oil residues building up inside your intercooler system and all your intercooler piping, there are a couple things that aren't favorable about it. The first one is your intercooler boots get covered in oil, and over time they can get a little slick and you can end up popping boots off if you're pushing high levels of boost. It's not the end of the world to do it, but it is a bit of a pain if you're constantly doing that and you have to go through and just over time continually to re-clean your intercooler boots to make sure they stay clean and maintain a nice tight seal. Another downside of it, I don't know why I'm pointing you over here because you can't really see it, but you do get oil buildup inside your intercooler, which isn't the end of the world again, but obviously the more oil you get inside your intercooler, the less efficient it is going to be running. Closes up some of the passageways, not as good. Is it going to completely block off your intercooler? No, it definitely will not, but as far as efficiency goes, it's probably not the best for your intercooler system. That is why the CCV mod came to be. Instead of venting your crankcase gases into your intake, you take your doghouse, turn it around, attach another piece of tubing to it, and run it down to the bottom side of the truck where they vent out to the atmosphere. So, looking underneath my truck, you will see right there, that is where I have my crankcase vented to, which is probably right underneath the driver's seat of the truck. That is where my crankcase ventilation is routed to. Some people route it all the way out the back. Some people have said to route it into the exhaust. We're going to kind of talk about that stuff in a second. So that is the CCV mod, quick explanation of it and why they do it. The main reason is to help keep your engine bay cleaner and help keep the oil out of your intercooler system. So why is this such a big deal? I can't say this is the only reason, but there's a guy out there named, I think, Bill Hewitt, who runs the channel Power Stroke Help, and he put a video out on this a while back. I don't know how many years ago, but man, I think that was the biggest spark of all this controversy. So what did Bill Hewitt say? Bill Hewitt basically said if you route your crankcase ventilation to the atmosphere instead of the turbo, you're not going to be getting that suction from the turbo of the intake, sucking the gases out of your crankcase and sucking the pressure out of your crankcase. And you're going to be building up too much pressure inside your crankcase. You're going to blow out seals inside your turbo. Your turbo is going to fail sooner. You're going to see this haze coming out of the exhaust. You're just going to build up way too much pressure inside your crankcase, and it's going to cause you issues. And he said in the video, he sees it 9 times out of 10 when they reroute the crankcase vent back into the turbo, that it fixes the issues that he's seeing. So the main thing is all these people that are against the crankcase ventilation mod or the CCV mod is saying that you're not going to get that suction of the turbo pulling the pressure out of your crankcase, and you're going to build up too much pressure, and you're going to be blowing out oil seals, and you're going to start leaking oil out of places you shouldn't be leaking oil. I can tell you that after I did the CCV mod on my truck and showed it in a video, there was quite a few comments out there of people saying you shouldn't be doing that. Bill Hewitt says this is why. There's other people that have said this is why. Lots of people have had issues of blowing out seals on their truck and leaking oil because of the CCV mod. Another reason some people don't like the CCV mod is the gases are coming out into the atmosphere, usually underneath your truck. They don't smell good, and they do have a little bit of oil vapor in them. There are people out there that'll say you route underneath your truck and you're just going to cover everything under your truck in oil. It's just messy, it smells bad, on top of the whole pressure issue. So all of that seems like pretty good reasoning not to do it. What's the point? So let me just give you guys a few things to think about when you're thinking about this topic. For any of you guys that don't know, the 7.3 Power Stroke is an engine built and designed by International Harvester, the tractor company. They designed and built this engine. Not only did Ford use it, International also used it in their larger applications, their medium-duty applications, school buses, small trucks, delivery trucks, stuff like that. So Ford wasn't the only person using this. Ford wasn't the company that designed this. International was the creator and designer of this engine. If you're looking up what the International version of this engine is, I believe it is called the T444E engine, smaller brother to the T466 engine. So here's a little food for thought for you guys. International built and designed this engine. International is a pretty well-known company when it comes to reliability. Obviously, the 7.3s are known to be extremely reliable engines. Now, what did International do on all of their trucks, all their medium-duty trucks? They have their crankcase vented to the atmosphere, same as what you'll see with almost any industrial diesel engine out there. You go to an old piece of machinery, usually vented to the atmosphere. An old bulldozer, usually vented to the atmosphere. An old dump truck, usually vented to the atmosphere. So why is it that Ford vented it into the intake? I would imagine that there are higher emission standards put into place on light-duty trucks like ours that are going to be on the road every single day, and that's why they couldn't have it venting out to the atmosphere. Now, that being said, the Cummins engines still vent theirs to the atmosphere at the same time period, so I don't know that for sure, but I would imagine it had something to do with those lines. But, like I said, International built and designed these engines to be vented to the atmosphere. That is how they run it on all of their medium-duty applications. That is what these engines were built and designed to do. So then why are all these people having issues when they do the CCV mod and they start getting oil leaks and it just doesn't seem right? What's going on here? Here's my take on it, and I've seen this happen a number of times. Somebody that has taken their crankcase vent, taken it out of the turbo and vented it to the atmosphere, and they start having issues with it, I would be willing to bet 9 times out of 10, if not more, they did a really poor job of actually venting it to the atmosphere. And what do I mean by that? When you are venting this to the atmosphere, you need to make sure of a couple things. The main thing you need to be aware of is that you're not causing any extra restrictions in the system before it vents. So what do I mean by that? You have to make sure that there's no kinks in the system, no too sharp of bends in the system. You want it to be a nice, easy flow, just like it was from the factory. Now, what I have seen is the current 90-degree elbow you saw on my truck. That is a 3/4 inch tubing. People will take 1/2 inch tubing and just shove it inside of that because it fits nice and snug and it's easy to do. What's the problem with that? You're taking a 3/4 inch inside diameter, reducing it down to 1/2 inch. Therefore, you've reduced the flow of the system. You're going to have more pressure in your crankcase because it can't flow as well. I've seen that happen with a number of people. Another issue that people have is either they get a kink in the line and they don't run it smoothly, or they end up getting a low spot in the line and they end up getting either water buildup or fluid buildup or oil buildup, which then, of course, again, reduces the flow rate of the tubing itself. No matter what you do, there's going to be some sort of oil vapor coming out of your crankcase. You're not going to be able to stop that. But if you have a dip or valley in your tubing of the vent, eventually you run the possibility of oil condensing and filling up a little bit in that area, which of course is going to block off some of the tubing. In terms of people saying that it's going to make a mess underneath your truck, one thing you can really do that is recommended to reduce that issue is, like you saw on mine, you take that tubing and you run it up over the top of the master cylinder before you go down. That allows the vast majority of all the oil vapors to condense and drain back into the crankcase to the valve cover before they get over the peak and run down below your engine. For the entire time that I've had my crankcase venting underneath my truck, I have not had a single drop of oil come out of my crankcase vent. And I can tell you it's flowing because when I turn on the truck, you can look down and you can see the steady haze coming out of the crankcase. But routing it up over the top of the master cylinder allows that oil to condense, reduces your chance of making a mess underneath your truck and leaving little oil spots. Now, over time, when these engines get worn out, there's going to be more and more crankcase pressures, and it'll increase your chances of blowing oil out of the tube. My engine only has 130,000 miles on it, so it's still pretty young. Like I said, you need to make sure there's not any restrictions in the system, either at the point, no sharp bends or kinks, and it needs to all be flowing downhill the whole way. That way, if you get water up in it, it can drain back down. It won't freeze in the winter and plug things up. You want it to be free flowing. So I think by this point in the video, you guys can probably take a guess at what my viewpoint is on the crankcase ventilation mod. And I would say there is absolutely no issue with it. For me personally, as you can see, I have chosen to trust what International did on their trucks, since they're the ones that designed this engine, and that's the advice I give to people. If you want to do the CCV mod, do not worry about doing it. You are not going to destroy your engine or cause any premature failure on it, as long as you do it the right way. Just be smart. It's not a hard mod to do. That is how International designed it from the factory to be run. Now, that being said, is there any real performance increase on running your crankcase to the atmosphere? No, there's not. If you do not like the smell of your crankcase gases, or you don't mind the oil buildup in cleaning your intercooler boots every year or two, then there's no benefit in doing it. The crankcase gases do have a very strong smell to them, and if the wind is blowing in the wrong direction, you're going to be smelling it. There's no getting around it. You may be having some people ask you why there's smoke coming from the bottom of your truck. It is what it is. If you don't want to deal with that, there's absolutely no problem in keeping your crankcase vented into the turbo. But if you want to clean up the engine bay a little bit, help it stay cleaner longer, that is the way to do it. One thing I probably would not recommend, that I have no experience with, so I'm not going to give you guys real strong advice on, is there are people that say take your crankcase and route it and attach a bung or weld on a bung into your exhaust. Then you don't have to smell it. It just goes out with your exhaust. The idea behind that, or the people that say there's things wrong with it, which I understand, is that you actually have some pressure inside your exhaust pushing that could potentially push back up into your crankcase. If you route it just right, you might be able to get a good Venturi effect actually pulling air out of your crankcase. But at the end of the day, personally, I'm just going to say route it to the atmosphere. Don't worry so much about routing it to your exhaust, if you choose to do it at all. So that is the whole controversy of the CCV mod. There's going to be countless people on both sides of this. I am sure that I'm going to upset some people with this video. This is my experience. I have not had a single issue with it. I know countless people have never had issues with it, and International sure as heck knew what they were doing when they designed this engine. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let you guys figure out what you guys think about it. At the end of the day, they're your trucks. You need to decide what to do. I'm just sharing my information with you guys. So that's that. To all my current subscribers and everybody that's been following along with the channel, let me give you an update of what's going on so you know what to expect in the near future. And if you're new here and you're thinking about subscribing, this is what's going on. Alrighty, so if you saw my last video, you'll know that I went through and painted my new 05 to 07 grill. Turned out really, really sweet. But it does have, as with most paint jobs, especially amateur paint jobs like mine, does have a decent amount of orange peel to it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just waiting for it to fully cure before I go through and wet sand it down and buff it out. I think that'll make a really, really nice difference. It's pretty dusty right now, but you can see some of the orange peel. I will say I took this out into the direct sunlight, and it has a beautiful metallic flake that really matches the color of the truck. And I think it'll look really, really nice on the front of the truck. And I didn't show it in the last video, but this gives you a decent idea of what it'll look like with that black honeycomb pattern behind it. I think it looks really, really good. I'm thinking about picking up a black badge, maybe a black International badge or a black Ford badge to go on the front of that. But overall, the front end is doing good. Now, in terms of update on the bumper build, as I last left off, I was looking for these two circuits. There's a massive shortage of circuit breakers in the United States, and it took me a little bit extra to order these in and get them in, but they're finally here. Found some on eBay. They should be good to go. So now I have just about everything I need to start the welding project. So hopefully in the next video, I'm going to be wiring in 240 into the garage, and then it'll all be set up to start welding. I'm super, super excited to try this thing out. I actually haven't even ran a single bead with this thing yet. But yeah, that's the update on the bumper build. Hopefully the next video we'll be wiring in 240, and then we can jump straight into the bumper build on the truck. So that's basically it. One more thing that I am not going to show you guys yet today. I've been working with a fabricator here in the United States that has been working on building something for the 7.3 line of trucks, and I can tell you that I got the very first one that he ever built sitting behind me here in the garage, and I'm really, really excited to try it out. I think a lot of you guys are going to be very, very interested in this. For any of you guys that have been around, you'll notice that my engine bay is not stock by any means, and I think what we're going to be adding to it is just going to bring it up just another level and make it look absolutely killer. So I'm hoping on doing the video on that here in the near future. You don't want to miss out. I think this is the first time it has ever been done production-wise for 7.3 trucks. It's going to be sweet. So don't miss out on that. If you're not subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, in reality, I'm really excited about a lot of these projects going on right now. I've always wanted to weld up my own steel bumper, and so now that I'm finally getting the opportunity to do that, super pumped to see how it turns out, learning to weld a little bit better. It's just, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I'm sure you guys can probably tell. Lots of fun projects coming into the channel right now. Should be lined up for a pretty good number of weeks of some fun content. So with that, I think I'm going to end out this video. It's probably getting long enough. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you stuck around this far into the video, I'm guessing you did, so leave it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Try to get back to as many of them as I can. This weekend is opening weekend for me, so I'm not going to be working on any truck projects. I'm going to be outdoors trying to get me a deer. I'm going to try to do some filming on that and get a video out for you guys so you guys can see a bit of that process. It is a little bit different being in a wheelchair, so I think it'll be interesting to some of you guys. Hopefully either I can get a deer this weekend or the next weekend, because after that the season's basically over. So that's what I'm going to be doing this next weekend. No truck projects for me, but I'm pretty excited for the season to roll around. So with that, hopefully you guys are all having a good weekend when you watch this. Catch you guys on the next video.